everyone, and welcome you back to Global Education Zone. And in this episode, if you recall, in a previous video, I talked about the fact that silicon is a part of elements that form very complex atoms. And today we have finally come to silicon. And silicon is one of the most abundant elements. It's the second most abundant element on the earth. And now this silicon we're talking about here, it is extracted in various ways. We're going to talk about that and properties of silicon. Now, silicon occurs majorly as silicon dioxide, which is also known as silica, and this silica is majorly formed and is majorly found in our sand. So our sand is basically made up of SiO2 and other impurities or rocky materials. Then you can also see silicon naturally as metallic silicates. That is, whenever you combine metals and silicon, so you can have silicates of metals when you combine with metals. So example of that is quartz, mica, and all the rest. And one interesting thing I often like talking about in my videos is the fact that silicon is one of the elements that has revolutionized the technological industries. For example, silicon is one of the principal atom and element that is used in the making of your computers. So if you don't know it before, you should know it, because silicon is called a semiconductor. So that is by way, it's a digression. Let's continue. Now, silicon, we have the various ways of preparing silicon, and the major way of preparing silicon is in the amorphous state, is by heating magnesium powder with dry silicon. So basically, when you heat magnesium powder, or which is known as Mg magnesium, when solid magnesium powder is heated with silicon oxide, it forms magnesium oxide, MgO2, MgO, and silicon. The solid, everything is in their solid. Now basically this is one way of making silicon oxide, SiO2. So in this reaction, basically magnesium displaces the silicon, and the silicon is deposited as the ordinary silicon. It displaces the silicon and the oxygen. So and that's one of the ways of preparing silicon. And then silicon reacts with various different elements. Silicon reacts to form trioxosilicate, for example, sodium trioxosilicate, calcium trioxosilicate, and so on and so forth. These silicates, they are often used in the extraction of metals. For example, whenever you are extracting iron, you make use of trioxosilicates to extract the impurities, such as limestone. So that's an example of how you can make use of compounds of sulfur. Sulfur combines with different elements. It combines with chlorine to form chloride. It's combined with oxygen to form oxide. It combines with metals. It combines with non-metals. And silicon. Silicon is a very common element. As I said earlier, it's the second most popular. Aside from trioxosilicates, it forms glass, and glass is basically a mixture of different compounds, including trioxosilicates, which is also known as sodium trioxosilicate or calcium trioxocarbonate. So when glass is formed by all these trioxocarbonates and trioxosilicates, they fuse together to form glass, so on and so forth. So silica gel is also another compound which is formed from silicon. Then we have silicon tetrachloride, that's SiCl4. That is another compound that is formed from silicon. Thank you for watching.